Hi, welcome to Forex in 4. I'm Mike Conlon for FXEDU, and in the next 4 minutes, I'm going to show you the highlights of where the action is in today's Forex market. So let's get started.
Good morning. Today is Thursday, April 7th, 2011. This morning I'm talking about Portugal finally submits. And after trying to fight the good fight and delaying what essentially was the inevitable, Portugal has asked the EU for a bailout. Now it looks like it's going to be up in the $100 billion range, but the borrowing costs in Portugal have just gotten out of hand, and they can't continue to try and finance their debt with rates so high. And you know, this isn't really a big shock for the markets. As you can see here, we're looking at the euro. And the euro, it's just down a little bit. It's down across the board, but you know, not like you would expect for you know, one of these sovereigns asking for the bailout. So a lot of it's already been priced in, and I think the market was just sort of expecting it, and it was just a matter of time. Now the question is going to be now is whether or not this triggers action on Spain, whether the market sort of turns its attention there, and whether or not they're going to be able to handle their debt. They've got over 20% unemployment. And you know, it still looks pretty bleak there, but there's also hope that this is going to be the end of the bailouts. That okay, we've just taken care of Greece, Ireland, Portugal, these three sort of peripheral countries that aren't these huge hotbeds of GDP, and you know, hopefully they can move forward from there. So that's what we're seeing there. Now we're going to get the ECB rate decisions coming out in about 40 minutes, 7:45 Eastern Standard Time this morning. But you can see here that the euro just sold off versus dollar last night, and it's getting a quick little bounce there. And the reason we're seeing that bounce, okay, is because of what we're seeing here in the UK now. The Bank of England just came out with their rate policy meeting, or with their rate decision rather. They left rates unchanged, which is no surprise to anybody, but they also left their asset purchase plan also in place, the $200 billion. Now there was some hope that perhaps they would try and scale back on that, but that's not to be. And basically, you know, you kind of see a tale of two economies going on here. Is that you know, the UK is content to try and inflate their way out of their debt problems, whereas the EU is more focused on trying to keep inflation tame. So you know, right now there's no hint as to when or if the Bank of England will attempt to raise rates, but they've got inflation way outside of their target, way outside of the band. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens going forward and for the next policy meeting. But you can see here the pound is just starting to weaken. That was the policy meeting right there, and you can see we had set up a little bit of a range with its top area there of resistance at about 163.40. I just want to show you the Aussie real quick. Okay, the Aussie has a great move overnight, and we are approaching 105 even versus dollar. Now they had their their employment figures that came out yesterday, and it showed that they added 38,000 jobs versus an expectation of 24,000 jobs, and that actually brings their unemployment rate down to 4.9% from an expected 5%. So you can see here that the Aussie is still cranking along, and it just goes to show that you can have improving employment even in the face of higher interest rates, and Australia is a perfect sign of that. But you know, you can see here we've got the Kiwi's lower, but actually catching a bid here a little bit on some risk taking. You know, the Kiwi's lower based on the risk that's in the market. You know, this Portugal thing, while yes it is expected, it still does present a risk going forward. The other thing I want to take a look at is in Japan. All right, we've got Japanese yen strength happening this morning, and we had the Bank of Japan rate decision last night. Now obviously they weren't going to do anything with rates, but the market was expecting them to be very accommodative, you know, in light of the earthquakes and the tsunami that they have, and they only came up with a meager $12 billion in loans to try and help the recovery. So this was far less than the market was expecting. The market was expecting them to you know, try and weaken the yen considerably further. It's already been weak, and we can look here on, say, the 30-minute chart, okay, and you can see that. You know, as well, let's go back a little bit more. You can see here that, you know, dollar has been rising, and that's yen weakness. But now all of a sudden we're starting to roll over. Okay, and we're getting a little bit of Japanese yen strength because they weren't as accommodative as the market may have expected. So perhaps they need a little bit more time to come up with a credible plan to fix this. But you know, we're going to see what happens going forward. All right. Lastly, just a quick peek at dollar versus loonie. Okay, you can see here we're at close to 3-year highs here for the loonie versus dollar. We've got higher oil prices, general dollar weakness, and then we also have just expectations rising in Canada for higher economic growth and higher inflation. So that's what we're looking at here. I'm just going to go back to the euro real quick. You can see the euro's catching a bid a little bit here, bouncing off some of these lows. But they're going to have the rate policy decision in about 30 minutes. We had German industrial production figures came in this morning, better than expected. So the euro's holding up surprisingly well in light of the Portugal news. And then here in the U.S., we're going to get the initial jobless claims, which will be out a little bit later this morning, about 8:30 this morning, and the expectation is that we're going to continue to trade in what we'll just call a three handle, if you will. So the expectation is that only 385,000 people will have lost their job or applied for unemployment last week. So that's what we're looking at here. Basically, tale of two economies. Euro combating inflation, UK, content to let it ride. So we're going to have to see who does better in the grand scheme of things. But for now, just wait for that Euro news, and we'll see what happens from there. So that's what I've got this morning, folks. Good trading to all.
As always, be sure to check out the written blog at www.fxedu.com to get complete coverage of today's Forex market. If you would like to learn more about how to trade the Forex market from professionals like myself, be sure to check out our affordable Forex trading courses. And if you're already a seasoned professional or aspire to be one, ask us how we can help you achieve your Forex goals. Go to www.fxedu.com to get started today.